but that will be a story which I will talk about sometime in November of next year. But you can understand, I need a little time on this one.
Hi guys. I don't normally do videos like this on my channel, but because it's something that's been getting a lot of attention lately, I thought that I should do a video to address some of these things.
And I'm sure a lot of you have seen the Twitter hashtag change the channel.
I kind of needed some personal time after I ended my association with Channel Awesome back in April.
And I wish I was making videos on other topics. I am so tired of talking about Channel Awesome anymore. I'm so supremely tired.
1 year and 11 months is how long it took me to become a Channel Awesome producer.
Yesterday I resigned, for the lack of a better term, from Channel Awesome.
And I'm sorry to say it is time for me to part ways with Channel Awesome.
So to hear that these content creators that I loved and respected were treated like dirt and weren't given the time of day when they were the very reason that people loved the site, well, it's not so awesome.
Hello everybody, my name is Magitrex and welcome to the final BoobTube review of 2018. And to be honest with you, you know what, I really don't know. I thought really long and hard trying to figure out how do I approach this type of movie. Despite everything that's been going on with this company and said organization within the last year. And to be honest with you, I had multiple reasons as to how I should do this. Should I do one of those traditional linear things where I review the movie from beginning to end, nitpicking everything in between? Or should I just ramble on and say how much it is terrible and how much it sucks? And to be honest with you, I'm just, after everything that has transpired with Channel Awesome and everything else over the course of this year alone, I would have to say that I'm just going to go pretty much like this. Raw, unscripted, and pretty much how I feel, especially with the aftermath that followed after this movie. You know, kind of like this guy over here. Hey, thanks, man. And besides, I could have easily ignored this or brushed it off, but as I said last year in my previous review with Suburban Nights, that I was going to review it 1 year later. So I'm a man of my word when it comes to reviewing things, no matter how big or small or how many requests I get. So long as I fulfill it, I know I'll be satisfied with it, and I will have to have it lingering in the back of my head. So, To Boldly Flee is the Channel Awesome's 4th installment in their movie franchise, and I gotta say that it was pretty much not only their biggest one and their longest movie, but it also was the movie that was pretty much the breaking point for a lot of internet critics who collaborated with Doug Walker as well. The movie begins pretty much after the events of Suburban Nights, where the nostalgia critic, played by Doug Walker, still feels bad about Mati dying in the last movie, so he decides to bring him back. But at the same time, he unravels a plot of other unfortunate events, which revolves around a giant plot hole which will consume the entire universe. And it's a good concept for a plot of a movie, but the way it was delivered, it pretty much was handled pretty poorly, to say the least. And yes, I'll refrain from a lot of cursing here, given YouTube's current state as it is, possibly a few jump cuts in between as well, like this one. So the thing about this movie is that it's 3.5 hours of pretty much everybody coming together, both new and old, from 2012, and a multitude of them are mostly kind of on the side, while majority of them all have their own little subplots, and I gotta say there's a lot of subplots in this. Most of them tied together, most of them pretty much go absolutely nowhere, and it pretty much is a huge disappointment if you ask me, because the thing about the general idea is that they say that Mati is trapped in this plot hole that is in the edge of some back corner of the universe. So in order for them to get there, they had to steal Dr. Insano's house that also is modified as a spaceship to fly over there. In other words, their production value pretty much went so cheap that they actually just filmed throughout everything indoors and very little with green screen works and a couple of scenes outdoors. And I have to say that is quite embarrassing, especially for a project like this. But at the same time, you kind of have to understand these guys, where these guys are coming from, especially in 2012, where every time Channel Awesome tries to do something where they do these annual movie reviews with sequels, it turns out to be more and more exhausting and disappointing, and the budget value just decreases every time because, well, they have to do this annually. In my personal opinion, there's nothing wrong with having sequels that are spaced out every 2 to 3 years. But the thing is, which is one of the reasons for actors to go home, be with their families, and also for the production values themselves to build up their revenue in order to make another sequel to a movie. But the way Channel Awesome did this is that they didn't have the big budget values, and doing these annual reviews pretty much made their production values shrink even smaller and smaller and smaller to the point where everything had to be indoors inside of someone's house. Some of the more impressive stuff will probably be the low-level type of special effects that they throw in here. At the same time, looking back on it, it did look okay for the most part, but it could have been better, especially with 2012 standards. As for the subplots themselves, there was a multitude of them trying to sprawl out throughout this 3-hour movie because, you know, they have to extend it out for long periods of time with a lot of filler. There were subplots that involved Todd, Nostalgia Chick, and Obscurus Lupa having a bit of a triangle romance where one didn't like the other, but one liked the other. It was just kind of confusing. Then there was that scene with Jesu Otaku literally turning into an anime girl to the point where she was building hardware for the team, which I don't recall any of that. And then there was the enemies as well. There were not a lot of enemies that they had for this movie. They pretty much had their recycled characters from their previous review series. Noah Antweiler as Turl, Doug Walker as the classic General Zod, as well as the only villain to make an appearance in this movie from the Channel Awesome franchise, or Reviewerverse, Mechakara, who tried to convert a couple of the characters, and then there was also especially Lindsay Ellis in one scene, which turned into a very controversial moment where they originally wanted to write this script. When they read over the script for the scene where Mechakara was converting Lindsay Ellis, they made it into more of a joke fantasy scene. However, because of Linkara and Lindsay's grievances with that said scene and script, they pretty much just edited it in post-production, making a bunch of grunting noises, which didn't make things any better, if you ask me. And that's another problem I had with this script as well, because the story of it seemed like it came at last minute, which apparently from a lot of the former producers that it actually did, and they had very little time to go over scene by scene. There were stories where they said that To Boldly Flee was filmed throughout a 1-week course with all 20 of the people that were involved. I can't imagine that type of personal torture and not getting paid for it as well. There were even stories about how they even went 18 hours straight just filming a whole bunch of variety of things, which you have to admit, that's pretty exhausting for a bunch of small-level internet critics who are getting paid nothing but in exposure, which at the time didn't help very much. And one of the worst parts about this movie, I would have to say, is that the Nostalgia Critic pretty much had to go all meta by meeting his creator, aka himself, Doug Walker, in order to save Mati and absorb himself into the plot hole so the rest of the Reviewerverse can be saved. And I'd say that was pretty lazy writing right there, if you ask me. What was even worse was that even after the movie was said and done and it was over, Doug Walker pretty much told the entire cast and, of course, his fans at the very last minute that he was pretty much retiring the Nostalgia Critic for good, just so he could focus on other things, which you think you would have to give somebody a little bit more leniency and more of a heads up when you tell somebody like that, because the Nostalgia Critic is one of the biggest heavy hitters out there when it came to the internet reviewing scene back then. And for these other smaller internet critics to just be forced onto the top of the Channel Awesome platform was a little bit of pressure for them. But over time, most of them did adapt, while others pretty much just gave up. And as the years followed after the events of the movie, pretty much a lot of the other internet critics who are affiliated with Channel Awesome pretty much just left. Now, over time, I pretty much didn't hear much about this other than whispers and rumors about how they were treated, what things were going with them. And it wasn't until around late March and early April of this year where a group of the former Channel Awesome content creators came together to create this Google Docs called the Not So Awesome channel. In it, they detail all of their grievances and terrible experiences with a majority of the Channel Awesome organization. Mostly from executives like Mike Bacod, Doug Walker, and Rob Walker as well. In it, they detail very detailed information about how screwed up their lives really were when it came to being affiliated with Channel Awesome. Just to cherry pick a few things, because I can't go over the 80-page docket. If you guys would like to read it yourself, I'll provide a link in the description box below. But to cherry pick just a few of them, in the movie Kick-Ass, they had a situation where they had a huge lack of craft services as well as water, to the point where one of the actors had pretty much suffered from dehydration in the Nevada desert. And there was also this other rumor about the homeowner, Kevin Baugh, arguing with Doug Walker about the fact that somebody was eating food out of his refrigerator. In Suburban Nights, they had no idea what to do half the time when it came to the weather, and they had to change things up several times. Originally, with Suburban Nights, it was supposed to be something of a horror house show, which everything was supposed to be self-contained and indoors, but they decided to make it more of an adventure quest, for whatever reason. There was also another actress on the job who also got injured while filming productions, and she was not covered at the time. During their hospital visit, they pretty much had to force her to sign a liability waiver after the fact that she was injured, which is something you really can't do. And as for To Boldly Flee, well, I pretty much covered all the basic stuff as well as the controversies as well. There's a lot more to it, which, like I said before, if you guys want to check it out, you can read the document in the description box below. The reason they had to address all of this is mostly because of the fact that they just grew tired. And after the huge support with the Me Too movements and a few other things, they figured they might as well just come together and just let it all out in one huge, big old document. And I will admit that when I first saw this and heard about these accusations within the first couple of days, I pretty much was on the Channel Awesome side of things. I assumed that this was just a way for the former content creators to mess with Channel Awesome, to throw a tire wheel into the curb of their 10th anniversary, ruining their movie and everything else, creating a huge social media drama. And it did cost me a few friends along the way. Some friends which I have collaborated with in the past, which I don't want to name, mostly because I want to value their integrity. But if they happen to be listening right now, I just wanted to let you know that I was wrong before, and I will be wrong again. That is until Channel Awesome publicly came out with this. One single page, mostly a statement. Not denying anything, not refuting any of these claims, or apologizing to anything. Merely just this one-page statement right here, talking about their what they feel about this whole incident that's going down, with a line that has really stuck out with a lot of people, with a sentence that says, "We sincerely regret that you feel this way."
Oh shit, son! They did that? Do you know what that is?
Which, if that doesn't give any type of indication as to how much of a company does not give a rat's ass about their former employees, I don't know what is. With this statement that came out, a lot of the current internet critics around March that are still affiliated with Channel Awesome went to their group Skype chats to chat with one another about how exactly they should resolve this. What should we do about it? Should we stay? Should we go? And to be honest with you, they had a lot of options at their disposal. Mostly, the biggest one that I've heard was getting Mike Bacod to pretty much fork over his, buy out his shares and just let Doug and Rob take over the reins. And I say that because Mike Bacod owns the rights of the Nostalgia Critic franchise. Which, how he did that, I have no idea. Probably because of some barroom bet or something along those lines. So they were scrambling in their Skype chat forums, and one person in particular pretty much had this very interesting statement to say regarding to everything that's been going down. Okay, so just to first address your idea, I'd like to be totally in favor of it, but it's not going to happen. The simple fact is that Mashad needs Doug and Rob more than they need him. He has nothing without the company and the Nostalgia Critic IP. He has no other job or skills, assuming he had any to begin with, as even Mike Ellis was in charge of the financial stuff, until it was revealed he was embezzling money. He won't sell it unless it was enough money for him to live like a king for the rest of his life. The only other option would be for Doug and Rob to buy him out, which also isn't going to happen because they don't have enough shares or money for it, and Mike wouldn't sell anyway. They'd also need the support of Greg, who also owns a part of it, and he's not going to buy out of his own brother. Now, as for things going on, This isn't just making shit up or reflecting on some shitty experiences, it's a continual pattern of behavior. We are not making any of this stuff up just to be difficult. These have been problems with Machad since day one. Now, if it was just his stupid ideas, fine, it's an issue when the guy in charge has terrible management calls. But then there's the way he treats the producers when they're on board. Everyone's talked about it, a repeated pattern of behavior where he specifically targets the women on the site for acting out of turn or not polite enough. But even without the sexism angle, he lies about us to each other, he refuses to communicate, he insults and belittles many of us sometimes to our own faces, and makes it clear that he thinks nothing of us. Okay, that sucks, but then why are Allison and Kaylin still upset about this? Because especially with Allison, it never fucking ends. She was moved to tears by Machad's abusive behavior when she was at the studio filming a crossover. And people still have the gall to ask her about crossovers with Channel Awesome, about Doug, about wondering if they're still friends, quoting things from Nostalgic Critic reviews to her because they don't know the history, don't know how she was treated, and yes, many of us saw firsthand what that was in the business chat. Our concerns are disregarded, and when called out on it, they'll try to make it private because they don't want a public discourse. They make promises and break them. They treat people badly. It's abusive behavior, and with Allison, it's like being constantly reminded of your abuser all the time. As for Doug, look, I admit that even I have tried to keep my own remarks on Twitter focused on Machad and only questioning creative differences between us, and complaining about those because that's just a matter of opinion. I still consider Doug my friend, and I don't want to badmouth him either, but you can't blame anyone for being upset with him when he's refused to do anything about it either. He doesn't seem to understand the kind of power he holds over Machad. There is no Nostalgia Critic without him, no cash cow for Mike, and he never seems to use that power to help out the other producers or call out bullshit. Even now, they've been completely silent about all of this because it's their only weapon. Be quiet and hope the problem goes away. It was like this during the mass exodus, and it's been like this any other time someone has been upset. I don't blame either of them for feeling that the walkers are complicit in all of this because it gives that impression. I like Doug. I am still his friend, and I owe a lot to Channel Awesome and our crossovers. But sometimes your friends are full of shit and they need to be called out. So I'm not going to stop them or question them for that. A lot of us have been talking privately as well, so let's make something clear. While people have reservations about still being with the site, and that includes me, they do understand there are unique circumstances for people, and that's easy to make the moral high ground when they don't have things to lose. When they rely on revenue, I want for any of the newcomers who go to the filming to make those same connections and have that experience. But people are equally allowed to feel upset over the continued association because it feels like a tacit agreement with what Machad has done. It's not just drama for its own sake. People are just sick of being quiet about it and tired of letting people get away with stuff. And with these words of wisdom from this internet critic, all the other producers pretty much just hightail it out of there in a large max exodus over the course of several weeks. Mostly people from horror film genres to video games, comic books, as well as all the current ones that have been around for nearly 10 years. And I gotta say, that is really commendable for these guys to actually do this. Especially in the market in this day and age where they can pretty much broaden their horizons in their own respective genres to grow in their subscribership and flourish, which they respectively have. A lot of these former producers are now earning six figures on their subscription count, which is very commendable for them. As for Channel Awesome subscription account, well, they pretty much tanked really major over the course of the month, which cost them about roughly 60,000 subscribers. But as of today, they pretty much bounced right back. And that's the thing when it comes to internet drama, which is that if you pretty much stay the course, you get hit from left to right when it comes to the internet drama. But for Channel Awesome's case, when they continue with all of this internet drama getting hit left and right, they pretty much steered the course and they grabbed some new subscribers along the way, as well as earning a new flock of, I guess you would say, guests on their show. If you checked out their Nutcracker review, you can see what I mean. And as for myself, what I think about all of this is that, well, as I said before, I was on the Channel Awesome fence, but now I'm not so much anymore, and that's mostly because of these various things. And I just want to address to everyone that I have been wrong. I have been wrong before, and I will be wrong again. This is just a learning curve and a stepping stone for people out there to learn and adapt from their mistakes. And I am very sorry because of it. If there's one more thing I want to say about this before I wrap this video up and 2018, is that it doesn't matter how many subscribers you have, whether it be a large amount or a very small amount. It's all about making that good impression with certain people out there. And if they do like what they see, they'll, of course, collaborate with you and give you a shout out. There have been times where I have made shout outs and tried out there, especially on Twitter, to make collaborations with other bigger internet critics with either 5 or 6 digit subscription accounts. But it's better not to force it upon yourself. Just continue to make the content that you like to do. And over time, if they like what they see, they'll help you out along the way, free shoutouts or a collaboration or two. As much as I am very disappointed with how everything is handled with Channel Awesome's actions with all of this, I still am subscribed to them and I still watch most of their videos because outside of the regular cast and crew, there's also these other smaller co-stars which I do like as well, and they have nothing to do with any of the movie scandals that Channel Awesome was a part of. I do like their content, whether it be their top 5s or their comic book talks, and they had their grievances with me, both positive and negative, when it came to the Twitter chats, which made me very upset, but at the same time, you know, that's how they work. And there's not much I'm going to say about it. What I will say is that I wish them all the best, and I hope for them to have a very long-standing and successful careers in their respected fields. And that's pretty much it. My sunglasses are constantly drooping, and it's time to wrap up 2015 with a few more notes, which I normally do. Just keep on keeping on and do what you like to do on YouTube or any other video viral platforms. Well, mostly it has to be positive because there have been a lot of seedy and heinous things going on with YouTube content creators over the last year or so. So, you know, just be careful what you do and just try to make it as positive and energetic, but also just try to be expressive about yourself. And I guess that's pretty much it. So with that said, I guess it's time for me to head on out. Thank you all again for another incredible year here on TheBoobTube and for watching every single one of my videos. I know this isn't exactly the type of review you guys were expecting, but I assure you next year it will be a lot different, more linear and more flushed out, hopefully this time around with some better effects and some better sound qualities. I bought some new equipment to hopefully make things a little bit more easier when it comes to your viewing content pleasure. So that's pretty much it. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next year. What are you doing? Drive. Are you sure? Just drive. Okay. Anywhere you want to go in particular? Anywhere but here. Whatever you say.